If you are a C# developer who wants to work in a fast editor environment and who also wants to learn more C# as you go, I think you should learn VS Code for C# development. In fact, I think that all C# developers should use VS Code at least sometimes in their project in order to grow their experience and understanding of C#. Now, before we get into more of the why and then into how to actually use this, let's start with the who. Who am I? My name is Tim Corey, and it's my goal to make learning C# easier. I have a YouTube channel you can check out at YouTube/IamTimCorey that has over 450 videos dedicated to C# and the surrounding technologies. I'd love for you to check it out. Also go to IamTimCorey.com and look at the resources section. There you'll find even more resources that will help you as a developer. I have my podcast that comes out weekly that covers developer questions you might have about being a developer. I also have the C# project site, which is a free resource that will help you understand the various project types in C#, how they work, how to get started in them, and how to go deeper into those topics. Okay? And if you have a suggestion, there's also a suggestion site at the bottom that will allow you to ask your question or get your particular topic covered in future content. Okay, so that's who I am. Let's jump into what is VS Code and why is it important for C# developers. We're going to start with the why first and then jump into actually doing stuff with the code. Okay, so why? Well, the first why is because it's just a fast cross-platform editor. It's going to work the same on Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can just jump right in and edit your code on any of those platforms, and it's going to look and work the same way. So that's number one. But number two is it's going to give you better experience with the .NET command line. And that may seem like a step backwards. You may say, Tim, Visual Studio is amazing. It does all those things for me. I don't have to know a .NET command in order to run my application. I just say F5 and it runs. Well, that's true, but Visual Studio isn't always going to be there for you. For example, if you want to set up a CI/CD process in GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, then you're going to need to know how the .NET command line works in order to build your project, test your project, publish your project, and more. So it's better to learn that now in VS Code so that you understand the intricacies of how it works. You better understand how to automate things and have a better understanding of what commands you'll need in order to set up a great process for building and publishing your application. So that's number two. Number three is going to give you a better knowledge of C# syntax. Sometimes Visual Studio kind of comforts you a little bit with these nice pre-done templates and item templates and so on that allow you to forget all the stuff that's behind the scenes. But the downside is it becomes a black box or magic that when it breaks, you don't know how to fix it. So with VS Code, it kind of pulls back on some of that, and you have to understand how various things work, which is a good thing. You have a better understanding of the foundation that you're building your applications on. And finally, it's going to give you a new perspective on your code. Just by looking at your code in a different editor, you will see things differently. So try and take a step back, look at it in VS Code and say, how does this work? How is it working? How should it work? And what am I missing? So I think that VS Code is a very important tool for C# developers to use to also learn C# better. So let's jump right into the code and see how VS Code works with our C# code. Now, I'm going to switch my editor here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you I have one extension installed that's important to you. It's the C# extension. So we have this C# extension. This is all you need. It's from Microsoft. It's powered by OmniSharp, and it is the tool for working with C# in VS Code. Now I have some other stuff installed, but that's the only one relevant to today's discussion. So right now I have nothing in this folder. Okay, let's go over to the folder itself and just see there's nothing in this console folder. So let's get started at looking at how .NET works. The first thing I'll do is I will pull up my terminal. And the terminal here is going to allow me to interact with the command line. So the .NET command line. And if you say .NET, it's going to give you some information, the way to get help and the way to get information, and the list of SDKs and so forth. Let's look at the .NET info. And this shows you which things are installed on my machine. You're going to see that I have a number of SDKs from 3.1 through 7.0. And that's 7.0 release candidate 2, which is about the same that you'll have right now, which is the production version of .NET 7, but it wasn't available when I'm recording this. So it's a bunch of different things installed. We're going to use the .NET 7 today, but you can use whichever version you want, whichever one's installed. And if you have a SDK that you want, just search for .NET SDK in Google or Bing, and you're going to find the list of SDKs that you can install on your machine. So with that, we can get started on creating stuff in .NET. So we're going to say .NET new SLN. We're going to create a new solution. We're going to call it, name is conf SLN. And this creates for us a .NET solution called confsln.sln. All right. And then from there, you're going to say, well, Tim, how did you understand that command? Because that seems like it's magic that you just know these things. Well, it's not magic. Let me show you how. .NET new, and I can say list. And if I'd done .NET new -h, it would tell me the different options I can call, but list is one of those. And this list is a list of the templates that I have installed on this machine that I can use. And one of those down here is SLN. Now, another one is the gitignore. Have you ever created a .NET project and forgot about the gitignore and then try to put it into Git source control? It causes some problems. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be ignored. But trying to manually create that file is also annoying. So let's do this. We're going to say .NET new gitignore. Done. There is our gitignore file with all the settings we need. So we're not going to worry about Git today, but I just want to show you that that's super easy to do, is a really helpful tool, and you can even do this on existing projects in case they don't have a gitignore and they need one. Now let's go back and we're going to clear the screen again, and we're going to say .NET new console. This is a new console application, but I'm going to give it a framework, so -f, and say .NET 7.0. I can change this framework or I can leave it off, and we'll use the latest framework that's installed on my machine. So the name is going to be Test UI. And now we've created a new project type called Test UI. So there is our console application. Pretty cool. Now you can come back here to our command line. We can clear the screen again. And this time what we're going to do is say .NET new class lib for class library. Again, -f for .NET 7.0. And you want to say this name is helper lib. And there we go. We now have a helper library. It's again in .NET 7. There's our class1.cs. We're good to go. So that is our setup for our project and our solution, but we haven't associated the two together yet. So let's do that. So let's clear the screen here. We're going to say .NET SLN for solution and give it which solution. We'll say add test UI / test UI.cs proj. This will add the project to the solution. Hit enter. And we're going to do the same thing again. That's how I'll wipe this out. And we're going to say helper lib / helperlib.cs proj. And again, we're going to add the helper library to the solution as well. So we're going to add both of those to the solution. And now let's bring us back down. I want to open up the test UI.cs proj. So in here, again, this is where you get to know C# better. In your CS proj file is where you have references. And if I wanted to reference the class library, I have to add a reference in here in my CS_proj file. I could do that manually, or I can come to the command line. Let's leave this like it is so you can see what happens to the CS_proj file automatically. And I can say .NET add test UI /test UI.csproj reference helperlib /helperlib.csproj. And that adds a reference to the helperlib project. Now I could have typed that out manually, but this way is another option for you, and it's different than just a VS Code checkbox, so you know how to do this even when you're not in in Visual Studio. The Visual Studio checkbox is nice, but this shows you what's happening and how you can do it yourself. Now, let's do something similar in the helper library. So go there, and we're going to clear the screen. And in this library, I want to add a reference to a NuGet package. Now, I don't know how to use this for the demo, but I just want to show you how to add a NuGet package. So we're going to change the directory into the helperlib. That just makes it easier. And we're going to say .NET add package Dapper. And there you go. That's how you add Dapper to your CS_proj file. You could have just typed this, but you can also run it from the command line. So both options are available to you. Now, so far we've built a project, we built a second project, we've added both to a solution, we've referenced the library in the UI project, we've added a NuGet package, but let's see how you actually run this application. Okay, so let's delete this terminal. And I'm going to come down here to our program.cs, and I wanted to hit F5, but if I do, it says, what do you mean? Nothing seemed to happen here. Well, that's because we don't have two projects that are normally created by OmniSharp by default. But sometimes they don't get set up that way. No problem. What we can do is Control-Shift-P to bring up our UI here and say .NET generate assets for build and debug. When we do that, it creates this VS Code folder with our launch.json and our tasks.json. So if you ever accidentally delete this folder, no worries. You can just do Control-Shift-P and generate the assets for build and debug. So with that, we have the two files we need to launch our application. But we're not quite done yet. There's one thing I want to tweak, and that's in launch.json. Now, right down here, it says console. Which console do you want to run? For our web projects, this isn't a problem to leave this as it is. But for our console applications, where we might have a console read line, we don't want the internal console because it doesn't have the ability to send data to it. So we want there's IntelliSense here, integrated terminal. That will be the terminal inside of VS Code. We could also say they want the external terminal, and that will give you a pop-up that is your separate command window. But we're going to do the integrated terminal, not console, integrated terminal. So with that, I'm just going to hit F5 like you would in Visual Studio. It's going to launch, it's going to run, and it's going to jump over the debug console. But if you go back to the terminal, we'll see that we have hello world right here. Now, this application didn't do a whole lot. It just has hello world. So let's do a little bit more here. Let's do our console.write. Please enter your first name. And then we're going to say string first name equals console read line. And then we're going to say console write line. And we're going to say hello first name, like so. Okay, so that's our console. Now this does say, hey, you know what? That's actually a nullable, which is something that's now built into OmniSharp, which says, I know about nullability. And if you go to your CS_proj, you'll see that nullable is enabled. So it's saying, hey, strings can be nullable, therefore warn if we're trying to switch from nullable to non-nullable and so on. So that's a good warning. We can leave it alone though. But now let's do this. Let's put a breakpoint right here before our write line. And let's hit F5. All right, if we go back to our terminal, we'll see, please enter your first name at the bottom here. I'm going to say Tim. I hit enter. And now we're at the breakpoint. We can inspect the first name variable and see that it has the name Tim inside of it. So this is just like our Visual Studio experience, or close to it, but it's in VS Code. I can just hit continue, and now it prints out hello Tim to the console. So that's how you would set up a project. But let's start all over, this time in the web project. Let's do something a little harder, right? Let's close this out. I'll move up one level, and we'll go to the Blazor folder, which has nothing in it. I'm going to right click and say show more. Oops. Well, I open the terminal. Oh well. I can just say code dot. That works too. And all of a sudden I have Visual Studio open again. I can open my terminal with the control and the backtick. And let's create a new Blazor project. .NET, new solution, name Blazor SLN. Let's add our .NET new gitignore, just so we have it. Then let's say .NET new Blazor server. Name is Blazor demo. Let's put a space in there. I'm not going to specify the framework at this point. Just go. All right, so saying, hey, there's no, I capitalize S, it looks like. I couldn't find that template, no problem. There you go. There's the template. And now with that, if you go look at the CS proj, you'll find it's a Net 7 project. So I didn't specify it, but because that's the latest version on my machine, that's what it gets. So with that all set up, I need to clear a screen here. Let's expand this. Let's add .NET SLN Blazor SLN dot SLN add Blazor demo slash Blazor demo dot CS proj. So we're going to add that to our solution, just the one. And what we're going to do is we're going to clear the screen. Let's actually just kill the terminal. And now we need to do the Control-Shift-P to do the .NET generate assets for build. And it says, hey, I can't find it. And it says, oh, I can find it now. Hit yes. There we go. Sometimes OmniSharp isn't started quite yet. I went quite fast, but it finally figured out that this is a CS project file, and it set everything up for me for launch. So we should be good to go, right? Well, let's find out. So if I were to hit F5 right now and run this, what's going to happen? Well, it should launch my web browser. It did, and it should launch Blazor. Cool. So now I have Blazor up and running, and you can see, let's zoom in here a little bit. Let me find the command here. There we go. So we click the counter, it works, cool. That's all great. There's a couple things that are wrong here. First of all, notice that this is the HTTP version. You can notice by the port number, there we go. The port number is in the 5000 series, not the 7000 series. So it's a HTTP. If you also check here, it says your connection is not secure. So we don't have the HTTPS version. Well, why is that? Well, it's because of how we set things up. So let's go ahead and stop this. So you've stopped this, and we can even get rid of this terminal if you want. And let's make some changes to our setup so we understand how things work and set it up correctly. First of all, you should know, and if you don't, that's no problem. We're going to learn now. Under properties, there's a launch setting.json. This is true not just for VS Code, but for all web projects in ASP.NET Core. And this tells the system how to launch your web project. In here, notice we have IIS settings, but then under the profiles, we have an HTTP setting, an HTTPS setting, and we have an IIS Express. If you were in Visual Studio, these three options will be in a drop-down. You get to choose which one you want to launch. But we don't have a drop-down here, so which one is it launching? Well, by default, it's launching the first one, because we haven't specified anything, which only has HTTP. Now, you could delete this. That would make the first one the default, which is this one, and that does have HTTPS. But that's not an ideal solution. Instead, let's go into our launch.json, and we're going to set the launch settings profile. So in here, we're going to set, let's go right here. And notice we have IntelliSense. We're going to say launch settings profile. And we're going to say HTTPS. How do I know that? In launch settings, we have profiles, HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS Express. And you could change those names. Those are just identifiers for you. But we're going to use the built-in HTTPS. Let's start that next. So with that one change, hit F5 and launch Blazor server. And it says your connection is not private. We have not yet, I have not yet approved that certificate. That's okay. We can do that in a little bit. But for now, we'll continue on. And there we go. We have under HTTPS Blazor server. Okay, so that works. But we're not quite done yet because we don't have the idea of hot reload. I really like hot reload as a feature, so let's add that to our VS Code. So in order to do that, we need to change the pre-launch task right here in the launch.json. So instead of build, we want to change this to watch. That's it. Hit F5. And now we're going to have the hot reload. Notice it says hello world. Let's see if we can minimize this a little bit. And I'm going to minimize my VS Code a little bit and move it over. And let's see if we can get this all on one screen. There we go. And let's go to our pages, index page. I'm going to minimize the Explorer window so I have everything, or the side window, so everything visible here. Let's change this to .NET Conf. I haven't touched anything. It just updated. So as soon as my page saved, it went ahead and did the hot reload and loaded the new changes on my Blazor app. This is all done with the command line. So there's some really cool stuff you can do inside of VS Code. If we go back and look, we have talked about debugging. We've talked about launching your application. Let's go ahead and stop this. And by the way, when you stop this, it's not quite stopped yet. Look at our terminal. It's still loaded. Let's hit delete. That'll stop it. So with that, we've looked at debugging, we've looked at breakpoints, we've looked at adding projects and solutions and NuGet packages, and doing the .NET Watch for looking at our application and doing hot reload. We've changed our web server. We've done a ton of stuff in VS Code and really just scratched the surface. There's so much more we can do in here that it's pretty impressive. And again, it works just like our other environments. So we can just dive right in here and start making changes to our Razor page, and we're good to go. We can just see those reflected on the pages. We can have our web browser in a different, or our different monitor, and see those pages reflect the changes immediately. There's a lot of stuff you can do with .NET, but it's all command line. So I would encourage you, get to know our VS Code, get to know the, actually let's pull up the actual terminal here. Just seems a little easier. We're going to say .NET and just start doing .NET-H. And here's all your list. So we have add, build, clean, format, list, MS build, NuGet, pack, publish, remove, restore. There's a lot of stuff in this list that will allow you to manage and manipulate your .NET projects without having to have an editor to do the job for you. Again, this allows you to do more when it comes to the CI/CD process, like in GitHub Actions and in Azure DevOps. So you can do a lot of stuff. In fact, all the stuff you can do with Visual Studio, you can do from the command line if you know how. So practice it inside of your VS Code. Okay? So that's really it. That's what I want to cover in VS Code. There's a lot more we can go into. There's a lot more depth we could talk about. One of the cool demos you'll probably see on my YouTube channel soon is I bought a $100 Raspberry Pi keyboard. It's a keyboard with a Raspberry Pi built in. Does not have a lot of power. And yet, I was able to install VS Code on it. It runs Linux. So I installed VS Code, and I have Blazor server and other things running on it, making changes, having the .NET watch for the hot reload, and so much more, all on a $100 computer. Now, what does that mean? Should you run VS Code on a Raspberry Pi? Probably not. But at the same time, you can, which means you don't have to have a slamming machine. You don't have to have the latest and greatest in order to get this to work and work well. So I encourage you, learn how to use VS Code. Learn how to use the command line. Learn how to integrate, and it will really improve your game as a C# developer. It will allow you to work on more platforms, and it will just make you better overall at your job. All right, so thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the .NET Conf.